As a composer, I am usually hired when a film is about to go into post-production. So spotting sessions are always a very useful starting point to get a feel for things, to gather our visions into a single bag, and to bounce ideas off each other, me and the director. Sometimes I'm given almost free reign over what the score sounds like, what the sound design sounds like, and sometimes I am fulfilling a specific sonic vision that the director might have. I think either way is fun for me. I try to find interesting ways to further the storytelling, whatever the direction is. So, I mean, when possible, I do find it very useful to be involved with the film at a much earlier stage in the process. Things like looking at storyboards, looking at scripts, looking at if we are dealing with animation, the character sketches, because that gives me number one information about the story. So it gives me time to really digest the story, to get to know the characters and how they sit in the world. And I mean, that itself is very helpful and useful when it comes to scoring and sound design. Um, it's also less pressure, you know, because sometimes deadlines can be very tight. So giving me access earlier in the process gives me more time, which is always a good thing. I mean, I've thought synthesis, I've thought composition, I've thought arranging, I've thought audio post production. So, I mean, no matter what the module, I try and get my students comfortable with the idea of experimentation. Uh, Sometimes it's difficult, just because we were brought up to kind of memorize everything without really understanding what any what goes on behind what you're memorizing, right? So experimentation, I find it to be a very good way to foster like genuine curiosity. And then when genuine curiosity comes, well, I mean, sometimes it leads you to places you never knew you needed to explore, and that's how true learning begins, I think. And also, for specifically my audio post production students who are coming into the module with a musician's perspective as compared to like someone who has been in film and TV. So I always tell them to take that musician's instinct and use it to your advantage, because a lot of the principles and techniques that you learn in music are actually transferable into things like sound design. Yeah, and so those can really help you to make your design decisions. I mean, storytelling, just storytelling is so fascinating. The many, many different ways that you can tell a single story, it's just like it's an endless world to explore, really. Specifically from my point of view, it's when I get the opportunity to create a entire sonic world from scratch. That's why I really, really like working for animation. Because, I mean, in animation, none of the sounds exist unless I put it there, right? And these sounds, they all represent something. Whether you can find it in the real world or not, it's up to interpretation and how I use the sound. So yeah, and every film is a different beast. And so, I mean, the challenge of that is also quite cool. The collaborative nature of this line of work is also really cool. I mean, I get to meet all these cool people who want to tell cool stories, and I get to help them in the audio department, which is just awesome. It's why I'm still hanging around. Well, I think it really depends on the film. The way I see it, music and sound, they're kind of like dance partners, where they do this intricate routine that's perfectly balanced and very elegant, and neither one ever steps on the other's toes, right? Um, Sometimes the sound design takes up more space, sometimes the music takes up more space, and sometimes you can't even tell uh, where sound design stops and the music begins, right? So they kind of merge together into this one form. I think when one cannot speak, then perhaps the other will. And in the end, if the balance is right, if the story is served well and true, then I mean, you're doing it right lah. Honestly, I kind of just stumbled into it through internships and student productions. But then I grew to really like the people, love the people. I think they are a very curious bunch who talk about such interesting topics, and then they turn these interesting topics into beautiful films. And I think it's just an amazing thing to watch every time. And I mean, to be able to lend a hand in this creative process through sound design and composition, it's just a very satisfying process and an honor. I mean, not one specific incident comes to mind, but I mean, the film industry has always been kind to me, so I am very grateful for that. I mean, these are the people who will keep asking me to come to their screenings or like some random movie night, despite my hermitly tendencies. And when I do attend, they always turn out to be very intellectually fulfilling and just inspiring times that keeps my brain churning for the next few days. So it's a good thing. Communication is key, whether it is with the audience, with fellow filmmakers, and especially in my case, between musicians and filmmakers. That itself is a beast. There are many times when musicians try to grapple with the language of filmmaking, but because they only have the perspective of a musician and the language of a musician, sometimes, you know, the frequencies don't match and misunderstandings happen. So, yeah, I mean, as a sound slash music person in this film industry, I think um, building, learning to build the bridge uh, that links the languages of musicians and filmmakers is a very important skill that one has to learn. I mean, to sum it up, the ways in which we reach out so that the other side understands what you're trying to say is so important. I think, like any other industry, we have learned how much can be accomplished remotely. I mean, for myself, I've mostly already been working remotely before COVID-19, but I'm seeing that more and more people are getting comfortable with the idea, which is, I think, a good thing. We are also using our creativity to kind of come up with solutions to the challenges that we face, especially on set. How do you even film stuff in the times of COVID? And I've seen many interesting solutions, which gives me hope. Well, I think it means acknowledging the value in telling all kinds of stories, no matter the scale and the complexity. In the end, we are all interconnected, whether we realize it or not. And through these films, hopefully, we'll gain some other perspectives that we've never come across before, and later, like, go about our lives with just that little bit more information and live just a little less selfishly.